Hi. Okay, I made one video on this morning, but my dad ruined that one, so let's do it again. For me and for you, and for my third book on negative ions, which is in the works, which quite frankly will have information that no one has ever shared or I've never read on in other books on negative ions on Facebook either. Never seen, and I've been on Facebook for 3 years now, so I know what people are talking about. So this information, not this one, but some of the information that's going to come in that book is never before seen information on negative ions and connecting the dots with a number of therapies that I do, most of which are free and cheap and very powerful for your health. Right? Negative ions, the grand unifier of health. Very powerful. Very powerful. So, let's talk and explain what we know about negative ions, distilled water, man-made distilled water, versus rainwater, versus fresh urine, versus aged urine. Oh, and I missed off in the subtitle, structured water. Oops. So yeah, let's talk about distilled water, man-made, structured water, fresh urine and aged urine, and what's going on. Because I worked it out, and it makes complete sense to me. And from my own experience, plus with what the science knows. Hi, Bill. Okay, so let's start. Distilled water is a negative ion thing. Negative ions are the key to health, right? Negative ions are things, liquids or gas. It's not all about negative ions in the air. People get confused and heard of negative ions in the air, and you know, from the beach, when water crashes on crashes against a substance, like on a waterfall too, when water crashes, an ion gets displaced from the water because of the power, the waterfall power of the beach and all that stuff, the waves crashing on the shore, creates a negative ion, and that goes into the air, and that's an air ion. But there's also liquid ions too, and that's where distilled water, that's where fresh urine, that's where structured water, and that's where aged urine comes into it. So there's liquid ions, and it gets more complicated because, to go on a little bit, sometimes you'll have liquid ions that can off-gas into gaseous negative ions. Just like the post I put today, I don't know if you guys saw, with aged urine sniffing. That's the liquid negative ion off-gassing into a gas. And without drinking it, it clears the mucus up. So it becomes a gaseous negative ion, you know, like by the beach and in the mountain in the pure air. So yeah. Anyway, distilled water. It's true from my own experience and from science that it is what Andrew Norton Webber said is very true. It's a negatively charged. It's negative ions, distilled water. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about machine-made. Machine-made distilled water is a negatively charged thing. It's got negative ions in it. I wouldn't say a lot, and I'll try and explain to you what the difference is between that and fresh urine, structured water, structured distilled. Because a man-made machine. A machine-made distilled water is not structured, right? And I'll explain what the difference is between structured water, and distilled water. But plain old distilled is very good, even machine-made. This is why people get fabulous results just drinking a machine-made distilled water. The reason is because and it's true what they say from my own experiences, my own detox, and I've messed about with this man-made machine distilled water. 0 ppm, that's 0 ppm. You get a little TDS, get a cheap TDS off Amazon, very cheap, like £5-10, and you can test. It should have 0 ppm, and that's how you know your machine is made. Well, it should have very close to 0, and that's how it's pure. Anyway, the science of Andrew Norton Webber, 100% correct. Distilled water, man-made machine. It's negatively charged. It's got negative ions in it, and negative ions are the opposite polarity in the duality universe that we live to the positive ions. So basically, and I know this is really simple, but it's true, anything bad in the body, that's toxins, heavy metals, crap, mold, all that shit that shouldn't be in the body that causes disease, which we all have to varying degrees, especially the people of the Matrix are unhealthy, it has positive ions. So guess what happens when we put distilled water into the body? You drink some distilled water. You know, people talk about the Weber protocol. Andrew Weber says drink like a gallon a day of distilled water. Imagine what that's doing. You're just flooding your body with a lot of negative ions that is the opposite charge to the positive ions, you know, and it neutralizes them. Oh, there's two things I'm going to say. First of all, it neutralizes in its opposite charge, neutralizes perfectly the bad shit in the body, all the bad shit. Yeah, well, I'm just going to say all, and I'll tell you why in a second, but it neutralizes the positive ions. But number two, oh, fuck, what was I going to say? Fuck, sorry, that's what, I've forgotten what I was going to say is number two. There's a lot going through my brain the last couple of days, so I'm trying to get the information out, but I'm flowing as well, I'm not written it down. So, it's negative ion, that's right, try and recapture what was the second thing I was going to say. It's a negative ion thing, and it pulls and attracts and neutralizes the harmful stuff, so it knows to do that. And what was the other thing I was gonna fucking say? That's so annoying. Maybe I'll come back to it. Okay, so it's good, and that's why people drink lots of it, and it does detox you the body majorly, and that's why we feel alive when we drink man-made distilled water. People notice a vibrancy, depressions go, and arthritis gets cleared out, and all these little things from the crappy food and crappy drink we've been eating, the tap water especially, what the fuck. When you move from tap water to distilled water, shit, you get, it sweeps up all that crap. There's joints with arthritis, bad knee joints, there's poor lubrication, you can't move, all these 80-year-olds on walking sticks and falling over, what the fuck, bad joints. It's very simple. Drink man-made machine distilled water, which is negatively charged, which is going to sweep up the positive charge. I remember what I was going to say now. So that's the amazing thing. It's negatively charged, and it neutralizes all the bad shit, which is positively charged. But also, I don't know if you're aware that your body, all the water within your body is distilled water. This is how important distilled water is. All the blood, with not just the blood circulatory system, which is huge, but also the water within the cells. You've got trillions of cells. They're surrounded by myoplasm, cytoplasm, whatever you want to call it, water. All of that is distilled water. Actually, it's a more special type of distilled water, structured distilled water, but I'll get into that in a second. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is going to be a long one. Stick with me. You'll fucking learn a lot. Or you won't learn a lot. You'll remind yourself of what we already know, which is important, which is what I'm doing too. So, first of all, within your system, distilled water is so key. Your entire network of blood and water within the cells, and you're a water-based being. Science says 70%. It's a lot of water you've got. We know this. There's a lot of water everywhere, within the cells, within the blood, fucking everywhere, the water. Well, it's distilled water. Now, it's distilled by something called the kidneys. The kidneys are not a fucking excretory system. They're a distillation system. They're the ultimate distillers of the human body. This is why urine therapy works, where I talk to you about Fesh and Aged Urine. It's not a fucking distillery. It is a fucking distillery. It's not a fucking excretory. It takes out excess, yes, but the point is that once you drink, like, say, tap water, what the body does is it goes about, as priority, distilling it. It's priority. That's why the kidneys are there. It goes, okay, you just drank some crappy water. And what the body needs is distilled water, so the kidneys get into action with the crappy water you've just fucking drunk because you're fucking stupid, and it cleans it up, right? So distilled water is really important. Now the actual water in the body is not distilled only; it's structured water. So now let's move on to the difference between distilled. I'll get to urine in a second, but I just want to talk about structured water. And what do we mean? Gerald Pollack's 4 phases of water, structured water. Look into Gerald Pollack, watch his videos. What is structured water? Now there is an argument I believe to be true too, that distilled water is dead, right? And what do we mean when we say machine, not rainwater? Rainwater is different. Rainwater is structured, cool. Urine is structured, cool. Fresh urine, cool. Structured distilled water. So Gerald Pollack's 4 phases going on when we drink our urine and we take rainwater, but the man-made machine isn't. Now, why do you want to structure, ideally, man-made machine distilled water? Well, because we did say that distilled water is a negatively charged, it's got negative ions in it, distilled water from a machine, right? That's pretty cool, but it is dead. Try and imagine it like this. Okay, so we know that the negative and positive, the positive shit in the body needs to be neutralized by the negative ions, the negative charge. Now there's a huge, okay, get this, there's a huge difference between the strength of a negatively charged thing. So liquid man-made machine distilled water, which is dead and not structured, which you haven't bothered to structure, and I'll explain to you how to in a second as well. It has, it's like a magnet. It's negatively charged, but it's a weak magnet. It's not too powerful. It's powerful compared to tap water. It's not even negatively charged at all. Don't get me wrong, distilled water, man-made, is powerful, machine-made is powerful, but we're comparing now, what I'm doing is I'm comparing man-made machine distilled water unstructured with structured distilled. By comparison, the man-made machine distilled water is, which is unstructured, which you haven't structured yet, is a weak magnet. So imagine it as a weak magnet. So what the weak magnet is going to do is going to pull the crap out of the body, but it's weak compared to the structured. So it's got negative ions in it, clustered, but they're not too clustered. It's a weak magnet, okay? It's a weak magnet. So it's going to pull out from the blood once you drink it, but it won't pull out much deeper, as a way of looking at it. It won't pull out too deep within the body. You won't go into a massive, major, fucking deepest detox cleanse with just plain old machine-made distilled water that's unstructured. Because it's unstructured. Now, what does structuring mean? The Jared Pollock's 4 phase of water, you guys probably already know. If you don't know, then what happens is, this is going to get super complicated. I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm trying to make it easy for myself and you guys. Structured water is just the negative ions that are present in the distilled water. They vary in size. So you can get larger ones and you can get smaller ones. You can get small clusters and large clusters. Now, negative ions in nature that are produced from the air, the ones that we get from the waterfalls and from the beach, they have very small clusters. These are good negative ions. Now, the bigger the cluster gets, because of like interactions with positive ions, or just, interactions with the bad artificial shit, what happens is either the negative ion cluster gets from small to, it gets bigger as it attracts the positive, or instead of attracting the positive, it gets into a bigger negative ion cluster. Now, we do not want big negative ion clusters, right? You want very small. That's how nature delivers the negative ions in the air, in the beach, and all this pure air that gives us the high. It's a very small cluster. This is complicated because there's still negative ions when they're a big cluster, but it's a small cluster. Now, what I reckon is that the distilled water is not too small. It's a negative ions. It's negatively charged, but it's not as effective as structured distilled water, because what structured distilled water does is it reduces the size of the cluster. So if you look at Jared Pollock's 4 phase of water, what you'll see is that the cluster of negative ions, which was present in the man-made machine distilled water, when you structure it, it gets tighter. It gets tighter. So one way of looking at it is it does. So the cluster becomes smaller, and the negative ions that we need to thrive as humans, we want really small clusters of negative ions. We want them tightly packed. And the man-made machine doesn't have it tightly packed to the structured. Now, imagine it like this. Like I said, the man-made machine water that's not structured is a weak magnet. Well, you've just made the magnet stronger when you structure it, because now the clusters are tinier and more tightly packed. That negative charge, the magnet, is a bit stronger. So now, structured water is a stronger negative ion machine. It's a stronger effect. And that's why we talk about in the community structured distilled water. That's why we talk about dead water, which is still effective, don't get me wrong. Dead negative ions going around the system will clean up the body. But we want it to become alive, and we do it through movement and sunlight, and then it becomes more structured, and the magnet gets stronger, the magnetism. And therefore, a stronger negative ion magnet is going to pull more positive ions. So it's going to pull from the blood and even deeper, because now it's structured. Right, so that's those two out the way. Hopefully I've explained that well. Yes, I will put this information in the book. I'm just giving you this information for free. If you don't want to buy the book, cool. But this is what I'm working out, and I'm 100% right. I'm not just saying it from theory. I'm doing this from reading loads of books and my own fucking experiences. I know what distilled water does. I know that structured distilled water is more powerful, and I know how to structurize. Just a quick one before we move to off to structured distilled water. The most movement can do it. That's how nature structures the water. So when water's flowing down from a lake, it structures in your urine. You're moving all the time. But the main one, movement does structure the water. Cold does too. Cold temperatures to liquid. But one of the most effective I found for structuring the water, the easiest, the most obvious one, the difference is with red light therapy. So sunrise, sunset. Nature designed it for the light of sunrise, sunset to structure the waters within us, but also in the lakes and all that stuff. So that's how you structure distilled water. The best way. You can move it around, that's okay, and do other stuff, but the best way you will find sunrise, sunset. Leave it out 2 hours before or after, either or at least an hour sunrise, at least an hour sunset. Find on Google your sunrise, sunset times. If it rains, it doesn't matter, by the way, you close the lid, because red light penetrates from sunrise, sunset, penetrates through plastic and glass. It doesn't have to have an open lid, although if it does, if you put it open lid, it'll course it. Will do it even quicker. So that's how you structure it. Now, fresh urine, like I said, is structured water. Your body is structured, you know, like a crystal structured. Yeah, well, you know, that's a very amazing structured being that releases negative ions. Well, you're a structured being too that also creates and releases negative ions, right? And like I said, the blood goes. Distilled water is so important. Pure water, which is the same as distilled, is so important to the body that as soon as you drink your poison tap water, your body goes about trying to get rid of the crap out of it and distilling. The body needs distilled water. That's why you have the kidneys there as the ultimate distilleries. So your urine is just a composite of the blood. How can we not understand this? Why are we so afraid? Why are some people so afraid of their own fucking blood? It's just your blood, guys. That's all it is, you know. So the blood gets distilled by the urine, and then distilled by the kidneys, and what is excess vitamins, hormones, and minerals and enzymes, which are all amazing things. Vitamins, minerals, hormones, and enzymes. To nth degree of loads of shit in that, loads that we discovered and loads we haven't in the urine. It's a crazy amount. But the point is, it's just distilled water, but also structured distilled. So now, when we talk about fresh urine, we're not just talking about man-made machine distilled water, which is, we said already, is a weak magnet. Still a magnet, still very good, going to detox you. If you've been drinking tap water or a bottled spring with a high TDS meter, high TDM, lots of inorganic minerals, which I believe to be true too, from my own countless experiments on, you know, that this 100 ppm on your spring water from a lake. Well, you know, it might be structured to some degree by the light, but it's going to cause problems to the body. It's obvious to me. I sweat all the time on spring water. From a spring! Yeah, I've done those experiments too, by the way. A spring high up in the mountains doesn't seem to cut it as well as fresh urine. So we've got the weak magnet of the man-made machine water, and then we've got the weak magnet. Good though. If you're new to health, distilled water. Even if you're not new to health, you don't want to go too strong with your detox. Keep yourself at a kind of high level of health. Yeah, go for your man-made machine distilled water unstructured. Now, to add fire to the weaker magnet, strengthen the magnet, what we want for detox and stuff. Structured distilled water. Get your distilled water you've made from a machine into the sun, sunrise, sunset. Understand that rainwater is structured water, so that's a cool one. And then you've got your urine, which is also structured, because your body is fucking amazing. And then, another hack, and I wrote about this in the second book. If you want to structure even more, you want higher quality urine, high quality fresh urine, get out at sunrise, sunset, because sunrise, sunset structures everything. If you put a crystal out at some, do you know what people talk? I could go all over the place with this. People talk about structuring the crystal as a black tourmaline, but any crystal. People talk about them being structured. They are structured, by the way, by themselves. Incredible, powerful negative ion generators. People talk about putting it in the sun, but people don't realise that. I've not heard anyone say this. It's not the midday sun that structures this baby, although the midday sun does do shit. It's the sunrise sunset that does all the structuring for water, for the crystals, for your body. Sunrise sunset. No one talks about sunrise sunset. Everyone's like, just put it in the sun generally. You know, the midday sun. No, it's the sunrise sunset that structures the fuck out of your body. So my point is that you can improve the quality of your urine, your fresh urine. It's already structured distilled water. Oh, and the degree to which your fresh urine is powerful as a strong magnet, the degree to which it's structured is dependent on your health. So people that are unhealthy, that we know, our friends and family, have structured fresh urine. It's structured distilled water, fresh urine, but it's not as structured as someone that's healthy, that exercises, fasts, eats good food, does intermittent fasting, and gets out a lot of light, and especially gets out at sunrise, sunset. That's the hack to make your fresh urine. That's the hack to get your fresh urine fucking powerful. It makes the magnet fucking powerful, man. It really does. Oh, I could fucking talk forever. My mind's been crazy. Let me just take no worries. I'm trying to. It's too much. I can make it talk for 2 hours easily on this subject. I'm going all over the place. So we got the fresh urine, which is very powerful, and it is structured distilled water. That's outside of the amazing benefits of fresh urine, which is going to have all the diseases, the antibodies you're fighting, the diseases you're fighting you don't even know about. They're trying to build up. It's going to have your enzymes, hormones, vitamins, and minerals. Fresh urine is structured distilled water. Now that's another key reason to work on your health, to get out of sunrise, sunset being probably the biggest one. But to work on your health generally, it's going to increase the structurization of your distilled water. Now, here's a key point. So we've got Gerald Pollack's 4-phase of water, and we talked about small clusters of negative ions being optimal, and that's how nature designed it. And then the bigger the cluster of negative ions gets, the less effective, the weaker the magnet, and the avatar doesn't pull as much, right, for detox and for health. It doesn't pull as much. Right, where was I going with that? Fuck, man, this is complicated. I apologize, guys. Thank you for sticking with me as I try. My memory's going fucking all over the place. Yeah. Okay. One second. Right. Okay. Yeah. I remember. So, structured distilled water. Here's the thing. The structuring process. The variance with which something can be structured is huge. Like when we say the term structured water, what we mean is the clusters of negative ions have got more compact. But the variance between how compact is this is key. The variance between how compact, how structured the water is, the distilled water, is huge. I know this from my own experience with fresh urine versus aged urine as the two examples. Absolutely fucking huge. Absolutely ridiculously huge. So when we talk about structured water, there's a huge difference between how structured. Huge difference. So at 1 degree we've got structured man-made distilled water, which is dead. So you made your man-made distilled water, which is dead. Still going to do good for detox. Weak magnet. We strengthened the magnet because what we did is we put it out with a sunrise sunset of a morning and of an evening for an hour, and that structured it. So now we've got structured distilled water from a machine, but it's structured, right? So the magnet's got stronger. Our fresh urine, in my opinion, is a little bit stronger magnet, depending on how healthy you are. It's a stronger magnet than it's a stronger pulling power, and healthier for you by consequence. It would plug you deeper into detox, give you more energy and shit. Fresh urine compared to man-made distilled water that's been structured by movement and light, sunrise, sunset. It's my opinion and my experience too with both. And I do love man-made machine distilled water, and I also love man-made machine distilled water, which I put out in the sunrise, sunset. There's definitely a difference between those two too. So we've got the science with my own experiences for me to know in my heart that all these things are different. Now, fresh urine is powerful, but like I said, there's a huge difference in how structured something can get. And I know this because I mess about with something called aged urine, which is just urine that's kept in a vessel for a period of time, a couple of days, a couple of weeks, gets stronger and stronger. Now, one of the reasons, huge, this is actually, and I'm glad I put a little bit of this in the first book on aged urine, but I didn't talk enough about it. Now I understand. The hugest reason why aged urine is so powerful. Now look, there's a lot of stuff with aged urine that is going to come out in the future that I don't know about, but I do know something. I know the reason why it's the most powerful fucking force on the universe of what I've experienced, and why it's such a huge difference between fresh and aged urine. The main reason is because, like I said, there's a huge variance in the structurization, Gerald Pollack's 4-phase. These clusters of negative ions increase in quantity and they get smaller. And look into Gerald Pollack's work if you want to understand exactly what I'm saying, go deeper with it. He explains perfectly, the clusters getting tighter and tighter. Aged urine, every day it grows. It's, okay, aged urine is just your fresh urine, right, to start with. We already know fresh urine is, from even an unhealthy person, is structured distilled water. So your aged urine was once structured distilled water, but each day that it gets older, what happens is it gets more alkaline, and not by consequence of alkalinity, I don't think exclusively. I might be wrong on that one, by the way, but we do know that each day that aged urine sits, the Gerald Pollack's 4-phase of water, the structurization process of that fresh urine as it ages day by day gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and fucking deeper and really fucking deep, right? And now we talked about magnets, right, didn't we? So we said that a weak magnet, man-made machine distilled water, unstructured, then we go and structure it with a sunrise sunset and it becomes a stronger magnet. And then we talked about fresh urine, and I said that's a little even stronger than distilled water from a machine that's structured. Now, the aged urine, each day that it gets older, becomes a stronger and stronger magnet. 2 reasons. the negative ions are definitely going up. The sheer quantity of the negative ions is going up, which is not just me saying it. I can prove it. People have done it. They've got an AUP meter and tested, and fresh urine, they say doesn't have a lot of negative ions. Now, I could talk forever about why they say that. It's not true, though. It does. But the point is that we can prove that the negative ion count of aged urine just proliferates. Now, I don't know why it's doing this. Maybe it's the alkalinity, but let's not talk about the why. It's just the fact. Each day, the actual amount of negative ions inside the aged urine just increases. We've got that. Yeah, and that's huge. And people, when they test it, people are like, it's only minus 300. That's actually a lot, but here's another thing that's going on with it, I reckon. Now, we talked about the clusters getting tighter, the Geropolis 4 phase. Well, the aged urine, and by the way, it doesn't even need, we talked about structurization is for a movement, sunrise, sunset, nature's ways of structuring. Well, the aged urine does it without that shit. So it might be the alkalinity in it. But the point is, the aged urine, you don't need to, you can keep it in the dark, aged urine, and it will still get fucking stronger. And the main mechanism being that it's increasing in negative ion count, but here's the one. Not only is it increasing in negative ion count a lot, but also the negative ions that are in it already are doing the Geropolis 4 phase. They're getting tighter and tighter. They're getting smaller and smaller, and the clusters, and they're getting tighter and tighter, tied together. So as the negative ion count on the aged urine goes up, they've got the double compound effect, more negative ions, and each negative ion that's already there and it's coming up is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Basically, what we're saying is the magnetizing power of this negatively charged vessel is beyond fucking imagination. If you've not messed about with aged urine, you don't know what you're missing out on. This is deep fucking detox. This is why aged urine is the deepest detox. I know I've got that information right now. I know that's a fact. That's why, primarily, I know urine's got vitamins, minerals, hormones, and enzymes, and amazing things, and probably stem cells proliferate in the aged urine too, and maybe other stuff. But for whatever reason, the magnet, the actual structurization of water, Geropolis 4 phase, is going to a very extreme level of structurization. That's it. Aged urine is an extreme structurization. Extreme. And this is a good thing. This is not a bad thing. It becomes perfectly fucking extremely highly structured medicine. And then when that extreme magnet, so we got the weak magnet, the slightly stronger, and then the fresh urine slightly stronger, the aged urine becomes a really strongly negatively charged. Now, that means that when you drink it or put it in the skin, it doesn't just kind of work at the level of, because it's a really strong magnet to positive ions now, it can pull extremely fucking deep. Extremely fucking deep. So when you drink, like even a couple of weeks old, at the point of 1 week, 1.5 weeks, anyone's aged urine, 2 weeks, it's a very strong negative magnet, negative ion magnet. Not only has it got a lot of negative ions, I told you, it's got, the structuralization is fucking awesome. So you drink it, and then it won't just pull, like, bad foods you've eaten from the blood. It won't even pull the superficial shit. It will go with, like, little bits, little amounts, however you're getting it in, drinking it, massaging it. It will pull super fucking deep. I mean this. I'm thinking of my own experiences with it coming, drinking and having missed childhood with the tongue. I'm thinking of Monica Shute saying the same thing, drinking it, and then she remembered. Right, get this story of Monica Shute. I always remember this one. She drank like a small amount of 1-year-old. I think that's very old, extremely old. That's really powerful. She drank a little bit of it, and she said a few minutes later. I can't remember the time afterwards. Was it a few minutes or an hour afterwards? But anyway, I think it was a few minutes. She said there was a taste on her tongue of childhood drugs she'd taken that she'd not taken since childhood. They'd come out on the tongue. Now think about that. I understand why. We understand now, because that is a fucking powerful magnet. And a powerful magnet doesn't just pull the superficial layers of ill health. A powerful magnet can pull the deepest poisons from childhood from the body. The poisons from childhood, the crappy foods we've eaten, the crappy medicines we took as kids, the antibiotics, all that bullshit. It gets stored in the body, guys. It fucking does, in the cells and deep within the body. It gets stored there because we don't fast for long periods of time and we eat crap food. I don't think even raw food's going to do it. Sorry. Raw food it's going to take 10 years of raw food, in my opinion. Oh, get this. It's going to take 10 years of raw food eating non-stop to kind of get to the point of pulling the deeper shit out of your body. Why are we doing 10 years of that when you can do with aged urine, 1 year old, or even a couple of weeks old, a couple of days of that, but even just the drop of a year-old aged urine, you can pull out the deepest, darkest childhood drugs like Monica Shoot's had. I've had it myself, drugs that, you know, from childhood come out into my tongue. You can taste it. That's how you know what it is. It's pulling out. It's a fucking really strong magnet. And that, without trying to be too long, is exactly why aged urine is like ultimate structurization and the most powerful magnetizing fucking negative charge force in the universe. And that's why I'm writing my book on negative ions. A huge portion of that is going to be dedicated to this stuff. This is going to be a huge portion. A significant portion is going to be distilled water, man-made machines, structurization, all the things I've explained. Fresh urine and aged urine, because I didn't cover exactly why aged urine, even though I put it was in negative ions. Now I understand the mechanisms with what's going on with negative ions. It's fucking powerful, right? When you mess about with negative ions, you get more up your negative ion count, whichever way you do it, and there's a lot more than just what we talked about here. There's loads of ways of doing it, you know. It's very powerful, but then also with negative ion count, you've got to consider, we can't see, we need to look under a microscope, but there's large clusters which aren't so good of negative ions, and they become large clusters negative ions because of the environment's poisonous, right? But, you know, and if an environment's clean, like a waterfall and shit, and a beach and the mountains high up, they'll have small clusters. And, God, look at this process. Aged urine creates the most, not only it ups your negative ion count for free from your own fresh urine after a couple of days, a week, very fucking powerful, ups negative ion count, it clusters the negative ions that are already there and building into tightly packed. It makes the magnet more powerful. And now that alkaline magnet can really pull to the deepest, darkest recesses of the body and give you the ultimate detox. You know, like dry fasting too. That and dry fasting, I'd like someone to prove me wrong, are two of the most powerful healing modalities. And dry fasting for a long period of time, by the way, very powerful. If you combine the two, wow, you'll experience something great. There you go. Done it. I made it to the end. Thanks. I'm proud. This one has been one of my favourites to learn for you guys and for myself, really. I was just trying to get the information out. Clean, fresh spring water. Urine is breast. Yep, urine is way better than clean, fresh spring water. Spring water that's got low TDS, like under 20, very good. I have done. I just noticed with 100 spring water that's surrounded by light and structured, but it has 100 ppm, doesn't seem to do me, it makes me just want to sweat out. So there we go on that one. Yeah, no worries. I'm glad you got some benefits out of you guys watching from this video. So that's it. Negative ions, man. It's the grand unifier of health. That's why I'm writing this third book on it, and key information. And no one talks about it, really. No one talks about this shit with negative ions. Everyone's like, oh, negative ions at the beach. It's far deeper than what you could ever imagine. The benefits of negative ions are going to put in the book too. Very interesting. There's a lot of benefits. Specific benefits, like the cilia and the muscles in the trachea. It oxygenates the blood better. It allows transfer of oxygen into all the cells much quicker. It's actually essential, negative ions. You'll die without negative ions in your body. You really will. Right? It's not all about oxygen, neutral oxygen. So, okay, all right. Thank you. Peace, and enjoy your evening.